Welcome back to the channel. Today, we are cracking open the Master Vault on a skill that acts as the ultimate gatekeeper to your income, your authority, and your destiny. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately noticed one person who effortlessly commands the attention of everyone present? They do not have to shout, they do not have to act aggressively, and they do not have to beg for attention. The moment they open their mouth, the noise in the room dies down, executives lean forward, clients pull out their checkbooks, and everyone hanging on their every word feels an undeniable pull of charisma. We are doing a massive, deep dive story breakdown of the absolute masterclass strategy behind presence, nonverbal dominance, and vocal influence, drawing directly from the definitive frameworks used by high-stakes presenters, media personalities, and executive coaches who train people to own the room every single time they speak. Most people believe that this level of presence is a mystical gift. They look at magnetic speakers and assume they were just lucky enough to be born with an innate social brilliance. But the science of behavioral psychology and interpersonal dynamics proves that owning a room is a completely reproducible science. It is a set of specific physical adjustments, conversational frames, and psychological weapons that anyone can learn, practice, and deploy. Get incredibly comfortable, grab your favorite notebook, clear away all distractions, and let us discover how to master the unspoken laws of high-status communication so you can command attention the second you step into any space. Part 1. The Hidden Battle of the Frame. Let us start our story by exposing an invisible war that takes place every single time two or more human beings engage in a conversation. Behavioral psychologists call this frame control. Before a single word is spoken about business, politics, or casual gossip, your subconscious mind and the mind of the person across from you are fighting to determine whose reality is more dominant. Imagine a highly talented freelance consultant walking into a sleek boardroom to pitch a massive project to a corporate executive. The consultant is brilliant, but he enters the room with a subtle posture of compliance. He smiles too fast, nods his head excessively, and stands waiting for the executive to tell him where to sit. The executive, running a high-status frame, stays buried in her laptop for a few seconds, doesn't look up, and says, "Make it quick. I only have 10 minutes. In that single micro moment, before the pitch even starts, the consultant has lost the room. He accepted the executive's frame that his time is cheap, his presence is an interruption, and she is the absolute prize to be won. He will spend the rest of the meeting sweating, rushing through his slides, and begging for approval, which naturally drives his value through the floor. To own the room, you must understand that the most dominant frame always wins. True authority means refusing to enter another person's defensive reality. When someone tries to rush you or minimize your status, you do not get angry or defensive. Instead, you remain completely anchored in your own calm, slow, unshakable pace. You treat your time, your ideas, and your presence as the ultimate asset in the room. You do not speak to seek their validation. You speak because you possess an immense value that they desperately need to solve their problems. Part 2. The Power of Kinetic Entrance and the Spatial Anchor. To establish a winning frame, your execution must begin long before you reach the podium or the center of the conference room. It begins the exact second your body crosses the physical threshold of the doorway. Most people make what is called a passive entrance. They walk into a room while looking down at the floor, adjusting their clothing, or carrying a messy pile of bags, which signals to everyone watching that they are disorganized and anxious. An elite communicator practices the kinetic entrance. Before you turn the door handle or step into the event space, you pause for one deep breath. You pull your shoulders back, lift your chin parallel to the floor, and lock a calm, steady gaze onto the room. When you step through the door, you walk at a deliberate, measured pace. You do not rush toward the nearest empty chair like a servant looking for a place to hide. You walk into the center of the space as if you own the entire building. Once you reach your designated spot, you must deploy the spatial anchor. Instead of fidgeting, pacing back and forth nervously, or swaying from side to side, you plant your feet firmly on the ground, slightly wider than hip distance apart. Imagine that your legs are heavy iron pillars rooted deep into the concrete foundation of the earth. This physical stillness is a massive status signal. In the animal kingdom, the lowest-ranking creatures are constantly twitching, looking around for predators, and making small, erratic movements. The apex predators move with absolute smoothness, economy, and deliberate stillness. By anchoring your body in space and eliminating all low-status micro-movements, you project an aura of absolute safety and unshakable power that forces everyone in the room to quiet down and pay attention to your presence. Part 3. The Mastery of High-Status Vocal Phrasing. Now that your body language has captured the visual landscape, let us analyze the acoustic mechanics required to project your voice into the ears of your listeners with absolute authority. There are 3 common vocal patterns that can completely destroy your status, and you must eliminate them from your speech immediately. The trap of the upward inflection. The most common vocal error made by professionals today is a phenomenon known as upspeak, or or the rising question inflection. This happens when a speaker ends a declarative sentence by raising the pitch of their voice at the very end. Instead of saying, "Our revenue grew by 20% last quarter," they say, "Our revenue grew by 20% last quarter?" Notice how it sounds. Even though they are stating a hard fact, the upward pitch turn makes it sound like a question. It sounds like they are subconsciously begging the audience for permission and asking, "Is that okay? Do you believe me?" This instantly betrays an underlying lack of confidence. To own the room, your sentences must use the downward inflection of absolute certainty. Your voice should slightly drop in pitch on the very last word of a statement, hitting the final syllable like a heavy gavel falling in a courtroom. It signals that your point is non-negotiable, finished, and backed by absolute truth. The danger of the rapid narrative tempo: when an amateur speaker gets nervous, their internal clock speeds up dramatically. A minute feels like a second to their adrenaline-fueled brain. As a result, they start sprinting through their words, talking at a frantic tempo without stopping to breathe. This hyperspeed delivery completely ruins their impact. It tells the audience that the speaker is terrified of being interrupted and is trying to dump all their data before someone takes the microphone away. A master of presence deliberately slows down their narrative tempo to a rate that feels almost uncomfortably slow to themselves. They speak with an elegant, rhythmic cadence. By taking your time and refusing to rush, you subconsciously broadcast a message of supreme high status. You are telling the room, "My thoughts are incredibly valuable, and I know that what I am about to say is worth waiting for." The audience will naturally alter their internal biological rhythms to match your calm tempo, listening with deep respect and intense focus. The weaponry of the articulate pause. We have all been trained to believe that communication is entirely about the sounds we make. But the true secret of vocal authority lies in the spaces between the sounds. Insecure talkers hate silence. They view an empty microsecond of audio as a vacuum that must be filled with filler words like like, or so. An elite operator treats the pause as an intellectual weapon of immense power. There are two specific pauses you must learn to deploy. First, use the preemptive pause. When you stand up to speak, do not start talking immediately. Walk to your spot, anchor your feet, look at the audience, and wait for 3 full seconds in absolute silence. This silent delay creates a massive wave of anticipation, forcing the remaining chatter in the room to die down completely. Second, use the punchline pause. Right before you deliver a massive statistic, a core takeaway, or a critical strategic conclusion, stop talking for 2 seconds. Let the audience lean in with curiosity. Then, deliver the point clearly with a downward inflection. Follow it immediately with another 2-second pause to let the weight of your words land directly in their minds. Silence doesn't show a lack of knowledge, it shows a complete mastery of the room's attention span. Part 4. The strategy of radical audience involvement. Many presenters view public speaking as a one-way street. They stand at the front of the room and read text from slides for an hour, treating the audience as a passive bucket to be filled with information. This is a total disaster for retention and engagement. Within 10 minutes, the human brain will naturally get bored, eyes will wander, and people will pull out their phones to check their messages. To truly own a room, you must transform your presentation from a rigid lecture into an immersive, collaborative experience. You must use the technique of the immediate loop. Within the first 2 minutes of your opening, pull the audience into your narrative frame by asking a calibrated question that forces physical or cognitive action. Do not ask generic questions like, "Does anyone have any questions?" Instead, use a physical show of hands or an opinion-based prompt. Say, "By a show of hands, how many people in this room have felt completely overwhelmed by their inbox before noon this week?" Look at the hands that go up, nod your head to acknowledge them, and tie their physical reactions directly into your next slide. By transforming your listeners from passive observers into active participants, you collapse the psychological distance between the stage and the seats. People will pay intense attention because they feel like they are co-creating the presentation alongside you. You stop being a boring speaker giving a speech, and you become a charismatic tribal leader guiding a shared journey toward a real solution. Part 5. The power of eye connect anchoring. Let us talk about a critical visual mechanism that separates amateur talkers from elite behavioral operators: the way you use your eyes. When an average person stands in front of a group, their eyes become incredibly erratic. They practice what psychologists call the lighthouse effect, where they scan their eyes smoothly across the room from left to right, never truly looking at any single human being. Or worse, they look up at the ceiling or lock their eyes onto their own presentation slides. This erratic scanning signals extreme internal anxiety and a complete lack of connection. To build absolute trust and project a high-status aura, you must master the art of eye connect anchoring. When you speak, you do not talk to a crowd, you speak to one single individual at a time. Choose one person in the audience, look directly into their eyes, and deliver one complete sentence or one distinct thought directly to them. Maintain that eye connection until you hit the period at the end of the sentence. Once that thought is finished, smoothly shift your eyes to a completely different section of the room, lock onto a new individual, and deliver your next sentence straight to their soul. By anchoring your eyes this way, you make every single person in the room feel like you are having an intimate, private conversation with them personally. It builds immense emotional investment, eliminates your personal performance anxiety, and projects an unshakable confidence that completely captivates the space. Part 6. The architecture of the incontrovertible frame. When you are speaking to high-level executives, investors, or smart clients, they are naturally analytical and skeptical. They are listening to your pitch while looking for holes in your logic, exaggeration in your statistics, or signs of desperation in your delivery. If you use hyped-up, exaggerated language like, "This is the greatest product in human history," or "We are going to grow by 1,000,000% overnight," their defenses will instantly shoot up, and they will reject your entire framework. To bypass this skepticism, you must build what the book calls an incontrovertible frame. This frame is constructed entirely on raw data, historical patterns, and objective truth, delivered without any emotional desperation. Instead of trying to convince them with hype, present your data as an absolute reality that is already happening with or without them. Use phrases like, "The data shows an undeniable shift in consumer behavior toward this model. Our pilot testing confirmed an exact efficiency increase of 43% over a 90-day trial. The only variable remaining is which partners move fast enough to capture the first mover advantage." Notice the lack of selling or begging in that phrasing. You are not asking them to believe you. You are inviting them to look at an objective reality. When you speak with this clinical, data-driven authority, you eliminate all room for argument. You shift the dynamic so that they feel the pressure to qualify themselves to enter your profitable reality, rather than you trying to qualify yourself to enter theirs. Part 7. Mastering the high-stakes interruptions. Let us look at a brutal challenge that every speaker faces eventually. You are in the middle of an important presentation, or you are pitching a critical concept during a meeting, and suddenly, a high-status listener interrupts you. They cut you off in the middle of your sentence to ask an aggressive question, challenge your data, or power in front of the team. Most people panic when they get interrupted. They either back down immediately and let the person hijack the meeting, or they get visibly angry, defensive, and enter a verbal shouting match. Both reactions are a total loss of status. An elite operator handles an interruption with total emotional detachment and an unshakable composure. When someone cuts you off, you stop talking instantly. Do not try to shout over them. Let them finish their entire statement while maintaining steady, neutral eye contact with them. Once they finish, pause for 2 whole seconds. Do not let your body language flash any signs of anger or irritation. Then, use a tool called the reframing bridge. Acknowledge their point neutrally, and immediately route the conversation right back onto your main track. Look at them and say, "That is an excellent observation regarding our operational risk, and it matches the exact data we analyzed on slide 5. Let us look at that slide right now to show you how our strategy mitigates that specific variable." By smoothly absorbing their interruption and using it as a direct stepping stone to your next slide, you completely neutralize their attack. You show the entire room that your mental clarity cannot be shaken by outside noise, cementing your role as the absolute commander of the conversation. Part 8. The Roadmap to Eternal Conversational Dominance. As our profound journey through the art of executive presence reaches its grand conclusion, remember this ultimate truth. Owning a room is not an act of arrogance, loud theatrical showmanship, or manipulative trickery. True dominance is the radical application of absolute certainty, focus, and emotional intelligence in a world full of noise, distraction, and hesitation. Stop letting self-doubt force you into low-status body language. Stop rushing your sentences, stop using upspeak, and stop letting outside interruptions shatter your internal peace. Step into your authentic personal sovereignty today. Walk through every single doorway with a kinetic entrance. Anchor your feet like solid pillars. Speak with a calm downward inflection. Utilize the power of the articulate pause, and anchor your eyes onto the souls of your listeners. When you master these unwritten laws of interpersonal influence, you transform yourself from a simple talker into a master behavioral operator who commands absolute authority. The walls of corporate skepticism will crumble before your presence. You will step into a reality expected. Your leadership is demanded. Your income matches your true value, and you possess the unshakable power to own any room, close any deal, and inspire any audience every single time you speak. What is the #1 presence technique from this communication blueprint, whether it is mastering the downward inflection or deploying the preemptive pause that you are going to commit to practicing during your very next high-stakes conversation? Let me know your communication breakthroughs in the comments down below. If this deep dive summary completely re-engineered your approach to social influence and handed you a definitive blueprint for human charisma, show some massive love by clicking that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss another transformative leadership or business book breakdown, and share this video with a colleague who wants to elevate their executive presence today. Control your frame, embrace the silence, own your room, and I will see you in the next video.